Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I am Renee Allen, the host of this podcast. I am excited to be here. I have only been on once a week the past few weeks. Before that, it was twice a week. I don't know if you've even noticed. I will probably get back to twice a week, but I needed to catch up on some other things before I could do that. So thanks for being patient with me. Today, I'm going to talk a bit about medication for ADHD. I'm learning in my newfound life, knowing that I have ADHD. A lot of us have been recently diagnosed in adulthood, in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, even 50s. Haven't heard of anybody later than that, but I'm sure there are. That's just what I've read of, people saying, well, I'm 58. Well, I'm 46. I'm just getting diagnosed. Yes, we're learning as we go. Unless you had a child with ADHD, maybe you didn't know that much about it. That is me. I actually have 3 children at least who have ADHD, but none of us knew it for a long time. So this is an education as I go. And I've learned that when you go to the doctor, some people go to their primary care physician and say, I think I have ADHD. Can you test me? And in my son's case, that was his pediatrician, although he wasn't a child anymore. He had actually been in college for a semester and was over 18, but he was still able to see his pediatrician. So he went to a non-specialist, unless you call a pediatrician a specialist, maybe you do, but he wasn't going to a psychiatrist. I gotta get this all together in my brain. We have mixed up brains sometimes, so I'm sure you understand. But he went to that doctor, and that doctor gave him the Vanderbilt test to give to his high school teacher and have me sign or fill it out as a parent. And he probably asked my son questions as well. I thought it was interesting because the high school teachers, I think, would have or did give different answers than they would have if he had been in 5th grade or something. He ended up just testing for ADHD inattentive type and not the hyperactive type. 100% he would have tested hyperactive when he was younger, but he was tested when he was 18, and he's a lot more mellow now. Some people grow out of that component. I did not. So yay for that. For me, I went to my primary care physician and was referred to a specialist, to a psychiatrist. And that's how it is for a lot of patients or a lot of women who go to the doctor. Some have said that they're diagnosed by their primary care physician, and that's great too. But backing back up to getting diagnosed, I was in that process at the same time as my daughter-in-law. And she went several times before the psychiatry resident would even believe that it was possible that she had ADHD. And she 100% did. And they finally did a test that confirmed it and said she was very high on the scale of ADHD, something we all knew. But this doctor had an opinion of what my daughter-in-law's life was like and thought she had anxiety and was overwhelmed by having 3 little children, which was also true, but the anxiety was very much related to the ADHD, and the children weren't causing that either. So anyway, her experience was a lot more frustrating than mine. Mine was getting a referral, going to a psychiatrist, also a resident. I'm in a university town. And I just had a conversation with the psychiatrist after doing the normal things, weighing blood pressure, that sort of thing. And he said, yep, you have ADHD, inattentive, and hyperactive combined. And it was all done in one visit. And then he asked if I thought I needed to go on medication or if I was interested. Maybe that's what he asked. And I wasn't sure at the time. And some people say no. Some people know in their heart of hearts, or even just looking up the symptoms online, that they do have ADHD, but they don't go get diagnosed because they don't have a need for it. They don't want to go on medication, or they don't feel like they need to, or it's not disrupting college, job, that sort of thing, that a diagnosis could help maybe. I know for my son, because he has ADHD and it's on his records at his university, he can request special helps. Even though he's very, very smart, it takes him a lot longer, which is one of the misconceptions. Some people think, well, if you get good grades, if you're really brilliant, smart, you probably don't have ADHD because you're able to pay attention and get that work done. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it takes him 5 hours to pay attention and somebody else a half hour. So he was able to get some special help. And one of those things was to have a choice if he wanted an audio textbook or written. And he said he'd like both. And one thing that did for him, if any of you are in college, is it made it so he gets to have any class that he wants. He's at the front of the line. Usually, at least at his university, if you're a senior, you have seniority to get into the classes that have these waiting lists. You're first in line. Well, he's first in line, and the reason is because he needs the audiobooks, and sometimes they have to prepare those for him. I need time to do that and know that he's in that class. If he was on the wait list and got in there, they wouldn't have time to do it. So that's interesting. But there may be a reason that you want to be diagnosed. Maybe you just need that confirmation. Maybe you want to be able to speak to a therapist about it or work with a psychiatrist to get medication, because the medical doctors are there to prescribe medication. They're not there to counsel with you, hear your stories. Although if you have ADHD and you're hyperverbal, like I am, you may want to share your story. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about options that you have and how you may feel when you go, and maybe give you some suggestions or some validation there. Because I've noticed that is something that I desire to do a lot of times when I go to the doctor, is to have conversations, whether it's just really explaining what's going on and developing a connection with that doctor. And some doctors are more open to that than others. And that may be frustrating, or you may feel like you're extra chatty and they're not. I feel like that with my primary care doctor, and I really like her, but she's not chatty at all. And I have to live with that. But it does kind of make me wonder what she's thinking sometimes. Once you have your diagnosis and you may be given the option to look into medication, if not, and you feel like you want to look into that option, you can always ask the doctor if the doctor's not suggesting that. I've found the whole medication journey to be a little frustrating, and I've seen that with other women, that it can be, because there's not a one-size-fits-all medication, just like there's not a one-size-fits-all ADHD person. Each of us have ADHD, and even if all of us were hyperactive component, or all of us were inattentive, or all of us were combined, if we were in a room and talked about the way that we are, the way that our brains work, the way it interrupts our lives, we will have similarities and we will have differences. There will be no one that matches up exactly the same, at least in my opinion, just like we don't look the same. Our brains don't always function the same. And with ADHD, what one person struggles with, another person may say, that hasn't been that big of an issue with me. And somebody else may say, yeah, I totally agree. And this is how it's even worse for me. And then medication, depending on your DNA, from what I understand, because you can have a DNA test and they can find out, I don't know exactly how, but they can find out what medication you may respond to better than someone else. And I've heard that with other mental health medications, that often a medication that works well for someone in your family may work better for you. And that makes sense if that has to do with the DNA. It's not always a sure thing, but it's a nice place to start. So when my doctor started talking to me about medication, I told him what my son had been taking, which was Adderall. And I said, can I try that and see what it's like? And he said, I'd rather you didn't. And I thought, oh, so I haven't tried that medication, but He said no, because at the time there was a shortage and he was afraid that he would prescribe it. And then I would have a lot of times when I go to refill or even to fill it in the first place and wouldn't be able to get it. And so he did prescribe a stimulant for me. And I've had a lot of trial and error ever since. And I've learned that I need to tune into my body, understand what's happening, and speak up for myself and play around with it a little bit. Like not be afraid to ask to switch or make changes if it's not my doctor's suggestion. And I don't know if you already do that if you're your own advocate, but if you have children, I'm sure you go into the doctor with your child and then the doctor says, I want to give them this antibiotic. And you maybe know something about that antibiotic or how your child responded to that before. And you might say, well, I don't know about this because I'm afraid, or I feel like this might happen, or this happened last time. And you advocate for that child. And as an adult, when you're going in a room with someone who has a different education than you do, different experience with their patients, have seen what has worked with those patients, but hasn't seen what works for you, it's your responsibility to educate them on what's working for you and what's possible in a patient, and to not be afraid to let them know if it's not agreeing with what they do. And if you have the people pleaser aspect, the empathetic aspect of not wanting to upset someone else, that might be a trial for you or a struggle for you. If not, then good for you, because I go back and forth. But I found that with my ADHD medication, I have needed to just stand firm. But sometimes you're met with resistance. And when I'm working with doctors who are residents, I'm finding that they aren't always the same doctor that I had 4 months ago, 6 months ago. So I don't have that consistency, and I might get a new doctor who has a different opinion. And I've had to really evaluate, what symptoms am I having? Is this desirable? And is it having a benefit? Because a lot of the medications, a lot of the stimulants have symptoms, and some people just find out, I can't take some stimulants. I can't take that kind of medication, and they may try the non-stimulant. And there generally are two classes of medications for ADHD, the stimulants and the non-stimulants. And in the stimulants, you can divide them into the long-acting. Usually they have an X at the end, or XR, PM, or long-acting. And those are medications that I would think, I haven't actually taken one of those before. And you take it and it lasts you all day long. Actually, maybe I did. Maybe my second one, it was an XR, because Focalin, I tried that one. It didn't last very long at all. Like, I had such a crash. And if you don't know about the crash, I can tell you about the crash. But that one didn't work for me. I've taken the short-acting ones, which you take more than one time a day. And children often will take the short-acting because they just take it to have it work in them while they're at school, and then they come home and they're not on that medication all day long. With the crash, if you're not aware of the crash, and they have different levels of going up a peak. So if you're riding a bike and you're going up a mountain, you're going up, and that's the peak, and then you ride back down. When you get to the bottom, hopefully you wouldn't crash with your bicycle, right? You would just get to the bottom of the mountain. But with the medication, when you come back down, sometimes because it's a stimulant, it takes your energy up, or it stimulates you. There's a peak, there's a high point. And I don't really notice a high point, a medium going up or medium down. But the crash is when you get to the bottom and it's not in your system anymore. There's not as much in your system, and you may be really tired. You might be really fatigued. And with some of the medications, if it's 2 times a day, maybe you schedule to take it before you get to that crash, or that crash is your reminder. You didn't set an alarm. And when we have ADHD, we often forget things. So that is a struggle with medication, is remembering to take it. And I've done the thing where the alarm goes off twice a day. And in a way, that kind of annoys me. So I'm not currently doing that. I just kind of look at the clock and hope I remember. But there are many times that I forget to take it twice a day. Or It's 10 a.m., 10:30, 11. I don't remember if I took it yesterday. I was like that. I think I took the second dose. I'm not 100% sure. In that case, I won't take the second dose because you don't want to take too much. I'd rather take too little than too much. You may have a method for you that helps you know when to take your medication. When we develop habits, we do things in a certain order and our brains just know to do it. I haven't done that quite yet. I've tried it different ways because I was told by my first doctor that I needed to eat something before I took the Ritalin and that it was important to do that. But then I get the prescription from the pharmacy and it says to take it on an empty stomach before eating. And I thought, which is it? And then I looked online and it's both. And, so I asked the doctor and he said, well, some people just experience some stomach issues or it's absorbed too quickly if you haven't eaten, eat some protein, different things like that. So I did eat before I took it for quite a while. And then I tried it not eating before I take it and saw no difference in myself. And I prefer to not eat first because if I take the medication first, then I do better at finding something to eat, if that makes any sense. Because finding something to eat is a decision I have to make. And that executive dysfunction gets in the way of my decision process. So I have an easier time making a decision, making a smoothie, that sort of thing, if I take the medication first. And I remember better because I can wake up, fill up my cup with ice water, whatever I do when I wake up. I don't have my water ready, go over and take my medication. And that's a habit for me. Fill up your water, then get out the medication and the supplements that I have. I have other supplements that I take and just do it all at once. That's my dream habit. That hasn't happened 100%, but it's the most, I don't know if I call it a dream, but that's my perfect scenario of the morning if that happened. But there are days that I think, oh, you haven't taken your medicine yet. Why didn't you do that? But it's kind of interesting because homeopathics, I don't know if you've ever tried homeopathics, but I have a friend who is very much encouraging me to try homeopathics for different things like insomnia and where you take those little pellets and put them under your tongue. And then the one that she told me to take was called coffea. It's like coffee. So I don't drink coffee, but I tried the coffea. But the coffea, you'd think, oh no, if I put that under my tongue, then it'll make me wide awake. It actually does the opposite, which is interesting. And it worked for a while, but then I forgot to order it again. And the second time I tried it, it didn't work. but she told me, oh, I've heard that there's one for ADHD. So I looked into it and all of the reviews were good for children and none for adults. And maybe not as many women have tried this. They get medication or something, and maybe the moms are more hesitant to try. That was just all my wonderings. And I bought it, and you had to take it, I think it was 3 times a day. It might have been 4 times a day. But with it, you have to also not eat something right before or right for a half hour afterwards. It was so rigid on the structure of how you do it that I thought, no wonder there aren't any reviews by women, because if you have ADHD, you're not going to remember to do any of that. you're gonna take it and then you'll go eat something. You'll think, oh no, it hasn't been a half hour, or I wasn't supposed to do it right after brushing my teeth because it has peppermint in it, or whatever the stipulations are with homeopathics. So that didn't work for me. But if it works for you, I'm excited for you. And there's some other, I'm doing quotes, quote unquote, natural supplements that may be helpful for you. I'm not going to go through those. I'm not super knowledgeable about them. I've tried a few. I'm using one now called L-theanine that's supposed to be calming to the brain. I took it once before and I thought, okay, I'll try it again, because the non-stimulant medication that I recently tried created anxiety in me. And it's one of the reasons why I haven't been on here as much the last few weeks, is because that medication, I upped the dose again, and it was just causing changes in me that was making it more difficult. There were new challenges and I was having no benefits. And that was my 3rd increase in the dosage. And I thought, if it's been 6 weeks and I haven't seen any benefits to this medication, and I wasn't even asking for another medication, it's just this doctor, this new resident, suggested it because I told him that recently I'd been extra scattered. And that was, I thought, mostly because I'd just come back from a trip and there was so much to do. And it probably was. Our brains have a hard time functioning anyway, but you add extra pressure and extra things to do, it might not be calm under that pressure. It might get a little maxed out. But anyway, I gave Strattera a try. I don't know if you've tried that medication. And some people say that that is a godsend for them, that it helped them so much. And some people take it after stimulants don't work. And there are some other non-stimulants, but they'll take a non-stimulant and find that it works so well that they don't need a stimulant at all, even if they didn't mind the stimulant, but they might get more benefits with the non-stimulant and then let go of the other one. That was the hope that my doctor had for me, but I thought, I think I'm fine. But I tried it and I had symptoms that I haven't had a problem with in life, like high blood pressure and anxiety. And I think I had some depression because when I started thinking that the last 2 weeks, I was still teaching my classes and doing a lot of things that I do, teaching my yoga classes. If you don't know, I teach yoga. But a lot of the things that I normally do during the day, I couldn't get done, and I didn't even care if I got them done, and there was no joy in even trying. So I don't know. I don't know if that's part of depression or not. I don't think I had all angles of it, but it wasn't pleasant. And so I think that's what made me decide to do this episode today, was to talk about medications and really paying attention to your body, because some things scream out at you. So nausea, some of the medications might have a side effect of nausea or digestive problems. You really can't ignore that. You notice that's happening and you're just like, oh, this isn't good. Other medications can make it so you have a hard time going to sleep or staying asleep. And that's what this did to me. There were nights that I couldn't fall asleep till about 2. And I'd get up and take a supplement. After already taking another supplement, like different kinds, I'd think, oh gosh, I have to go another level with these supplements to help me go to sleep tonight. I got to get my sleep. I can't get sick. Or I'd wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, like my body loves to do. And I couldn't fall back asleep after 4. And you just lay there and you just lay there. And it's not like I had great troubling things going on in my mind. It was just my heart was doing I guess they're heart palpitations. That's another thing that's interesting, is you may have symptoms come up that the doctor may say, are you having heart palpitations? And you think, I don't know what that is, because you've never experienced it before. So that's what was happening with me, is when the doctor would say, are you experiencing this? Are you experiencing that? I'd think, I don't know. Like if someone asked me if I was experiencing heartburn, I wouldn't know because I've never had it before, but I could describe to somebody what I was feeling and they'd say, oh, that's heartburn. And then I'd know afterwards. Because I noticed with my children, I don't know if you noticed this when your children were little, they would give you clues about how they felt when they had symptoms that weren't the same words that we use. And one of the things would be, like they'd point to their neck and they'd say, my neck's hurting. And I thought, your neck's hurting. And this is like in the throat. And I think your neck's hurting. And then pretty soon they'd throw up. And I think, oh, they didn't know how to say, I'm feeling nausea. I think I'm going to throw up, because they didn't have words for that. They hadn't experienced it. And I've noticed when I go on some of these medications that I'm having experiences that I already feel like I talk too much to the doctor, and then I feel like a crazy person because I'm saying, well, I think it's this, but I don't know, but it's this, and my heart's racing, but my heart rate wasn't too high, and all that kind of stuff. But do a little research, talk to your friends, maybe find the right words. I'm learning to do that too, or talk to my son. He's a resident doctor right now. I don't know if I mentioned that before. But use your friends and your family members as sounding boards for things like that. If you don't feel the confidence to go to your doctor or write to your doctor and say, this isn't working for me, I need to do this. And they may say, oh, I don't think that's what's happening, which is exactly what happened to me with this medication. I had a different doctor's visit last week and my blood pressure was high, and it's never been even close to that before. And so I sent a note to him. You can do the online notes, or you can call and get a note through whoever answers the phone. but just said, I don't think this medication's helping me. And I think it's causing this high blood pressure. And he called me back and said, it's not very common for this to be a side effect of high blood pressure. And I thought, yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe it's something else. And I thought he was going to say only 2% of patients. He said 15%. I thought 15, I know that's not like 85%, but if it's 15%, it's a good chance a few of your patients will have that as a symptom. And then I told him about the anxiety. I said, I think I'm having anxiety too. My heart beats fast and I feel real anxious and not sure what to do. And he said, well, this medication doesn't help anxiety. It's not supposed to help anxiety. I said, I didn't have anxiety before I took it. I'm not saying it's not helping. I'm saying it's causing it. And he wasn't convinced on that either. And obviously I can just say I'm not taking it or just stop taking it. But I was just kind of baffled that, not that he has to agree with me on everything, but I was just surprised that he had those responses. But he did tell me to take my blood pressure a few times, stop taking the medication, take my blood pressure, see if it goes down. And it did. It went way down. I even booked an appointment with my primary care physician to go in and talk to her about it and have her test it in case I'm not testing it correctly. I did that today. It was really low. And I just feel good that I am taking charge of my health in a way that I need to. And sure, there might be components of ADHD that I'm still going to struggle with. I haven't found the magic medication or combination that just makes me so neurotypical. That's not happening. At the same time, when I took this Strattera at the beginning, I read some people said, oh, it was so nice. It was like, all that noise in my mind just went quiet. And then I thought, this is what it's like for other people. And when I first started taking it, I found that I couldn't think of things. Like my mind went quiet at the very beginning, like I couldn't think of words to say. And I thought, I don't want it that quiet. I need to have words at my fingertips. But that didn't actually even last. So I don't know. Medication is very bizarre and it does do things to our bodies. So be careful taking it. I'm not advising or telling you not to use anything. I'm not a doctor. That's not my place here at all. And that's not my area of expertise. I'm just encouraging you to be the decider, be the one who decides if you stay with a medication, if you go on it. You might be advised to do it and you don't. This medication I actually started taking, the Strattera, I was advised to take it a year ago. I filled the prescription and took it home and just couldn't get myself to take it. I thought, I don't know. And, of course, I'm sure doctors don't like it when we Google and see what people's side effects are. And I thought, I don't want that. But the funny thing is the side effects that I didn't want were nausea and digestive issues. And those weren't the side effects I had. So it's really interesting that what can be common for most people if they have a negative side effect may not be your experience, or what may be the fantastic benefit for them may not be it for you. So just feel confident in yourself. Even if you walk in and out of that doctor's office feeling like you did most of the talking, that's okay. Or if you aren't the talkative person, but you go in there and you're just not comfortable or you're a little overwhelmed, do any research you can. Always feel free to change doctors if that's an option for you. And if it's getting expensive for you, so this is another thing I wanted to address, is in states that stimulants are a controlled substance, they have different rules of how you can get refills or how many you can get or who picks it up. It's a lot different than just picking up asthma medication or something like that for my husband. It's a lot different. You have to show your driver's license. And at least in the state that I live in right now, in Florida, you have to see your doctor every 3 months in order to continue on that medication. And you don't get refills, although this is kind of fuzzy. It's technically not a refill, so you don't just go on your pharmacy account and click to fill a refill, but they put it so that within 1 month it'll get refilled. It rescripts, I guess. And then if you don't see your doctor after 3 months, they won't continue doing that until you have another visit. Although if you get sick or something and needs to postpone, they'll do it. I had that happen one time. But I found that I couldn't afford this at the beginning because our health insurance when we first moved here was pretty horrible as far as what they covered. And the specialty visits cost a lot of money. They were like $300. And I learned that the more I talked, the more it cost. So I thought, don't ask questions when he asks, are there any more questions? Make it a shorter visit. And it was a little less expensive after that. But I was still paying on it. I asked, can I make payments? This is a lot of money. And I started reading online that some people could get refills from their primary care doctor. So I put a message into mine and said, can I see you instead of the specialist every 3 months to get these refills written out? And she said, yes, you can. But if you need to change medications, then you'll need to go back to the psychiatrist. So that's what I did until our insurance changed. And I thought, oh, I'll go back to the psychiatrist and just let him know how I'm doing and see if he wants to switch up dosages or anything like that. And that's where I am now. But, I may switch back to just going back to my doctor. It's easier. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say is if it is kind of intimidating for you to go in to the doctor and you've already established with that doctor, you've already seen each other face to face, the telehealth visits, the video visits are nice because you don't have to leave, you don't have to go in, you don't have to get your blood pressure taken. And it's just a little more comfortable if you're okay with video visits. So that's what I've done the last few times, and I really liked it. Saved me a lot of time as well. I think that's it for today. Thank you for listening. I'm always curious about everyone's experiences, how they've done with medication, how it's helped them or not helped them. Not that you need to tell me your medical history at all, but I just like knowing that we're all in this together. It's nice to know that you're not the only one. I'm surprised at how many women there are that deal with this. And I didn't know of any women who dealt with this when I was younger. And my mom was a mom. Now she's a grandma and a great grandma. But I'm pretty convinced that my grandma actually had ADHD. I always just thought I was like her. So my poor grandma, she just had to feel like she was scattered sometimes, and we'd laugh about it. But I wonder too, you know how they say that a lot of the foods we eat aren't as nutrient dense as they once were and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we struggle with it more because of that and other environmental reasons. I don't know. But I definitely see a change over time in my symptoms and how they can increase. And I'm actually going to do a blog post about that because I think that can be confusing for people. Like, why would they change the older we get? And there are a lot of reasons. So anyway, thanks for listening today. I've continued to make changes on my website. I don't know if it's as exciting for you as it is for me, but I look at websites like I'm experiencing them, and I can't stand to go on a website that has a lot of ads or just so much that I don't know where to look first, or it scrolls down forever. So if you do that, you scroll down, you think, I'm not reading all this anyway. Why is this all here? I just want to find out this information. So I'm going to get into blogging more and make it so it's simple to read. But I'm also adding videos here and there on my website because there's some information that I wrote out to begin with. And when I sit and look at it as if I'm somebody looking at a website, I skip over it. I'm not going to sit and read it. But just watching somebody talk for a few minutes or listening to them while I'm cleaning the kitchen, I can get that information in a way that works for me as a woman with ADHD, and maybe you can too, because there's stuff that I want to pass on to you. But if you're like me and you skip over it, or you can't possibly see all of it from one glance, then I'm just kind of revamping with that in mind. But thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it. My schedule might go back to Mondays and Thursdays. Right now, it's been pretty much Wednesdays, but we'll see. No promises because you never know. But I do have goals, and we'll see how I do. And I hope you do well with your goals too. I hope you're doing well on medication or non-medicated or whatever you're doing to manage your ADHD. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.
Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause. No time for a pause. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.